This week in Jamaica Now.
So anybody to lose what they've worked hard for is always such situations.
Usain Bolt says it's been a tough past few weeks, but Jamaica remains his home. The sports legend is among 40 victims of a fraud at a private investment firm. The FBI has been called in to help the fraud probe. Government and opposition agree to minimum 45 years in prison for non-capital murder. And
you look for me good. Me man already and me man again.
The children's advocate and the education minister are shocked as a viral video shows a teacher issuing death threats to a student. I'm Jovan Johnson and this is Jamaica Now. Sports legend Usain Bolt says it's been a tough time for him amid his efforts to get back more than $2 billion he says has been missing from his account at the fraud-hit Stocks and Securities Limited (SSL). He gave a glimpse into his thoughts on Friday. The global icon said Jamaica remains his home.
So anybody to lose what they've worked hard for is always such situations. So definitely disappointing.
For those that are saying that Usain Bolt is now broke.
No, I'm not broke, but it's definitely put a damp on me. You understand? It was for my future. Everybody knows 3 kids. Still looking after my parents, and I still want to live very well.
And Mr. Bolt confirmed that he fired his longtime business manager Norman Peart last December. It's not clear the reason for the dismissal. Meanwhile, up to Friday, there was no word on whether Bolt received his $2 billion. His attorney, Linton Gordon, says an update is likely for January 30. The 100 and 200 meter world record holder gave SSL 10 days from January 16 to pay out his money. Bolt is among at least 40 clients who have been impacted by the fraud that reportedly went on for more than a decade and involves at least $3 billion. An investigator has revealed that an account at SSL belonging to Bolt's holding company Wellgen was essentially depleted from 2017, 5 years after it was opened. Bolt's attorney has said SSL statements showed that the account had $2 billion in October 2022. It now has $1.8 million. Now, the Financial Services Commission, FSC, which regulates investment houses, has obtained a court order that blocks SSL's directors and trustees from voluntarily winding up the company. Companies seek to wind up or liquidate their assets when there are unfavorable business conditions that threaten their future. Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark said the regulator acted after SSL applied to the Companies Office of Jamaica around January 16 for a voluntary wind-up. Among other things, the court orders block SSL directors from dealing with assets and liabilities in the name of SSL or its clients. The directors also cannot withdraw or transfer any funds from accounts in SSL's name. The FSC has also restrained SSL from interfering in the fraud investigation. The FSC took over temporary management of SSL on January 17, 7 days after the company reported the fraud that it says implicates an ex-employee. SSL's founder and executive director Hugh Croskery and the chairman Jeffrey Cobham have so far declined to comment on the reported fraud. The implicated ex-employee has also not been charged, although files were seized from her St. Andrew home a week ago. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Andrew Holness says the government will not bail out any failed financial institution. He says such an action would signal to banks and investment firms that they can be negligent and expect state rescue. Now, Mr. Holness has indicated that he held an account at SSL from 2008 until 2021, when he said he gave instructions for it to be closed. His ruling Jamaica Labour Party says it has never had an account at the company. And earlier this week, Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark announced sweeping reforms for how investment firms will be allowed to operate. He also named Bank of Jamaica Governor Richard Bals as the new head of the FSC board.
With external auditors, regulators, managers, bankers, and later internal auditors, how did this fraud go undetected for 13 years? I put it to you that that is the central question. And it is a question that our government will ensure is answered. The government of Jamaica will review the penalty regimes in the Securities Act, the Banking Act, the Insurance Act, and the Pensions Act. We will stiffen the penalties for white-collar crime in the financial sector. The discrepancy between the sanctions for white-collar crime and other forms of crime must be erased. If you rob depositors or you defraud investors, our society, and you put our financial system and our way of life at risk. The Jamaican society wants you put away for a long time. A long, long time.
The reforms follow the Gleaner's revelation that the FSC branded SSL a problem institution with a culture of non-compliance and mismanagement of client funds for almost 6 years up to February 2017. Those details were never disclosed to the public. 5 public bodies, including the National Housing Trust and the National Health Fund, have investments in SSL. In other news now, the opposition PNP says it will not object to the government's proposal to increase the mandatory minimum sentence for non-capital murder from 15 to 45 years before a convict becomes eligible for parole. Justice Minister Delroy Chuck announced the government's intention during a statement to the House of Representatives on Tuesday.
A clear and unmistakable message must be sent to potential killers that their wanton and heartless act will be met with disgust, repugnance, and a lengthy period of incarceration. Having taken a life, Madam Speaker, the offender cannot and should not be allowed to enjoy the remainder or most of the remainder of his life freely and unburdened.
Opposition leader Mark Golding said consensus on the issue would make a statement to society about the heinous crime. Chief Justice Brian Sykes started his summation on Monday in the Klansman One Don Gang trial, the longest of its kind in Jamaica's history. Among the things he said is that evidence given by a former member of the Klansman One Don Gang about the 2017 murder of a supermarket employee in Chancery Street, St. Andrew, could demonstrate the existence of a gang if accepted. The judge said the evidence, if accepted, can also be used to prove membership of the gang. 2 self-confessed former members of the gang had both testified that the alleged leader, Andre Blackman Bryan, ordered the killing of Damaine Dooley Forrester in 2017. Mr. Bryan and 26 other alleged gang members are on trial. Education Minister Favour Williams has condemned the conduct of a teacher who was captured at Newell High School in St. Elizabeth, issuing death threats to a student.
You look for me good. Me man already and me man again.
It's not clear when the incident took place and what caused the teacher to get upset. And children's advocate Diane God Harrison says behaviours like the one in the video are completely unacceptable and warrant immediate intervention from the leadership of the school. She says a team from the office will visit the school to carry out interventions. The Jamaica Fire Brigade is yet to identify the cause of a house fire in which a 12-year-old girl died on Gilstress Street in Rollington Town, Kingston on Thursday. She has been identified as Leah Hugh, who was a student at Kingston High School. And that's it for this edition of Jamaica Now, your weekly review of the big news stories. Send us your comments at onlinefeedback@gleanerjm.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Jamaica Gleaner and on Facebook at Gleaner Jamaica. Like this video on our YouTube page, turn on the notification and subscribe today. I'm Jovan Johnson, and before we go, more from sports icon Usain Bolt, who has reportedly lost almost $2 billion in an alleged fraud at investment firm Stocks and Securities Limited.
What is your mental state at the moment, given all that's going on with a very public case involving yourself?
For me, it's tough, but I think through the years I've competed, I have to understand and just focus on what's matter. I need to matter in my life, and understand. I'm just trying to focus on my family and try not to think too much about it because it's a stressful situation.
Alright, you of course spoke to TVJ. You said that you're a business manager. You are since been removed. It's no longer with you guys. He said that the separation was amicable. What can you tell us about that situation?
It's simple. It wasn't. He was fired. That's pretty much all I have to say. My lawyer said that I shouldn't say a lot about that, but it was not amicable. He was fired from his job.
What else are you prepared to say about where you are in terms of, because your lawyer had come out and spoke and said that you had given them 10 days and that a lawsuit was filed. Are you prepared to say anything about the status of the filing of that lawsuit?
Well, it's 10 days, so you just give it time and you'll see what will happen.
What are your thoughts on how the situation was managed by the systems in place, the government? Is that something you can speak to?
I don't want to say too much, but as we know, it's from everybody's standpoint, it doesn't look good. I mean, I'm sure I've read a few comments and see a lot of people, everybody's confused, you understand? So for me, I'm as confused as the public, but we'll see what happens.
You're not the only person defrauded of this. Are you disappointed in the financial system, the SSL, the FSC, that they were not able to secure people's investment?
It's always going to be a sad situation, you understand? For anybody to lose what they've worked hard for is always a sad situation, so definitely disappointed.
For those that are saying that Usain Bolt is now broke.
No, I'm not broke, but it's definitely put a damper on me, you understand? It was for my future. Nobody knows 3 kids. Still looking out for my parents, and I still want to live very well.